bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Welcome, Fade to Black. How you doing? I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Let's do this, man. So excited. What a great week on the show. And you can help support everything that we do around here. Just get a Fade to Black t-shirt. We have 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get a Game Changer membership. You can order a shirt, order 2 shirts, order 1 of each. Very simple to do. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. There you go. All right, the links are below. An amazing week this week. Monday, we had Robert Bauer on the show. And last night, Michael Schratt was here. Tonight, JK Ultra is back with us. And tonight, we're going to be discussing, well, it's JK, it's Jennifer. We can do whatever we want. But I frame this around, her work and stuff. But I want to pick her brain a little bit tonight. But I've called the show tonight, UFOs, AI, and the Soul. Okay, we're going to do all of that tomorrow night. David Palmer is here. It is the return of the Leo King. I do want to mention, and I keep saying this, we've got 2 comets right now. We've got a second moon right now. What does this mean with astrology and somebody like the Leo King, David Palmer? And what does he see with that, with everything else that is going on with astrology, not only to our future, present day, but also the past? We're going to be discussing all of that tomorrow night with David Palmer. I've got 4 major events coming up. That's right. In about 2 weeks, I'm going down to Peru and Bolivia with Brian Forrester. He had no shows for 2.5 weeks. Going to be down there getting information for you. It's going to be amazing. Then right after that, the Conscious Life Expo. I'm hosting it again this year. I think that's 10 years now for me. Hosting the event February 7th through the 10th, 2025 at the LAX Hilton. The links are below. Speakers, schedule, tickets, all the information that you need is right below consciouslifeexpo.com. Right after that, Rise of the Guardians. March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. Again, links are below. And then after that, Contact Modalities Expo. This is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin on Delavan Lake. Beautiful lakeside resort. Great, great speaker list. More speakers are being added. I'll keep everybody updated. Tickets go on sale November 1st. Today is the 23rd. Okay, but the website is below. You can check everything out. Go check out the resort and get your plans going. Come hang out with me in the Midwest. I'm going back to my roots. It's going to be so much fun. All right. I wanted to mention really quick before I bring in Jennifer, and that is earlier today. I've got a complex studio here, and I've got 6 computers that run the show. I've got multiple streams that are going out. You right now, wherever you are, you think that this is the only. No, I've got multiple stuff that goes out, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so I've got a lot of automation. Woke up this morning to one of my software programs saying, okay, it's time to update your drivers. And so I clicked OK, right? And 9 drivers were updated. Everything was cool. Restarted the computer. Everything is fine. I didn't even think. And so I go and I start the breaking news, and I finish the news. And I noticed that there were a couple of 100 comments there, all saying, Jimmy, we can't hear you. And I was like, what? And it was a great broadcast. But here's the thing. I do a 10, 12, 14-minute live newscast. I'm not looking at the chat. Chat is covered up, by the way. It's not even there. And I'm just focused on the camera and the news, concentrating and getting through everything. And at the end of that, I saw it. And I went, oh, those drivers. Oh, no, I didn't check anything. And I just shut everything down and went out and got on my Harley. That's what I did. I was just like, that's it. I'm going to fix this later. So that's what happened. I can see there are no comments about we can't hear you tonight, Jimmy. So we've got all that fixed. All right, JK Ultra is back with us. And tonight, we're going to be talking about aliens. We're going to be talking UFOs, UAPs, interdimensional stuff. We're going to cover that. We're going to go through her own experiences. She's done a couple of regressions. So we're going to have some regression conversation tonight. Somehow, Sarah Breskman Cosme always weasels her way into one of my broadcasts. We're going to be doing that tonight as well. And she's had different sessions with different people, all friends of mine. And that's going to be interesting to find out about their approach and what was revealed. We're going to do that too as well. And we're going to be talking AI. I want to jump into that. I want to jump into the soul. I want to jump into consciousness and all of the latest stuff that's going on with our community. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, JK Ultra. She's right there, Jennifer Carati.
Hello. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be back, and I'm excited to talk about my three favorite topics.
Yeah, I know, right? See, Jennifer, this is the thing. No, I'm going JK. JK Ultra is like the coolest name ever in the history of everything. So I'm going with JK, Jennifer, if you don't mind. But,
I love it.
But you know what I say all the time? Because this show is just about me and my journey, right? And what are my favorite subjects? Well, obviously, right? It's UFOs and conspiracy theory and time travel and science and physics, and it's all of that. It's food. Love talking about food. I love talking about movies. I like talking guitars and music. And if I can, just do, those are my favorite subjects. And we're going to be able to do all of that tonight. And yeah, so let's do it. Okay, this is where I actually want to start. I want to start in the now. There are two things that are pretty viral in the UFO community at the moment. Well, also it involves the Department of Defense and NASA and what have you, including the James Webb Space Telescope. But the first subject is Immaculate constellation, right? And when this started to break last month, it's the perfect thing for the community to just jump on, because you're going to have two sides to the fence. You're going to have the debunkers, right? And you're going to have people supporting this. And we have a lot of very smart people in this community, and they are going to go after this. They're going to FOIA. They're going to do searches. They're going to do everything that they can. When the story started to break, what did you find out? And what do you think?
So, I think it was pretty interesting. Again, we're hearing about another secret program. And honestly, I feel like the name is a little like too on the nose for most of the secret programs we hear about.
Yep.
But I looked past that. I was like, okay, maybe they decided to be more, straightforward with this one. Because usually we have different types of like project names and stuff that are more discreet. But and also kind of about the debunking thing, because, anytime I cover a topic, I get the same type of responses. Some people are super excited to hear alien news. And then people are like, Project Bluebeam, you should know better, JK Ultra. And so, I have some feelings about the Project Bluebeam. And actually, when Sarah Breskman Cosme put me under hypnosis, that was one of the questions we asked. We asked about Project Bluebeam. Are these disclosures, are these whistleblowers, can they be trusted, or are they part of Project Bluebeam? And now,
Right.
of course, this is like an oversimplification, because we know Project Bluebeam is actually the fake alien invasion where they use holograms to fake the second coming of Christ. But it kind of became this umbrella term for anything that is false information about aliens from the government. So it's like people are using it more like an umbrella term than what it actually is. And so the thing with Project Bluebeam, the information that came through in my hypnosis was really interesting because it said there's a lot of people that are in the government that this is part of their destiny on this planet, and this is part of their mission. Their soul is connected to disclosure, and their soul is connected to these alien races. However, there's a lot of people that we aren't seeing, that aren't coming forward, that will never know who's behind the scenes, who these real shadow figures of the government, these councils, these collectives, who are actually making these decisions and putting out false information. They have different intentions. So to like really push all of these like whistleblowers and make it seem like they're the ones who are lying, when actually a lot of them have a sole purpose connected to aliens on this planet. So then we asked about like the fake UFOs, the fake alien invasion. Like, what is this? Are the UFOs that are being disclosed right now government or not? And the higher self basically said it's both, but both are helpful. So it's helping the skeptics to become less skeptical, because there's a lot of people who are going to have to see to believe, but you have to believe in order to see something that's in another dimension. So it's this paradox. So it actually, having these government programs that are probably, you know, Lockheed Martin, all of these secret programs that are defense and weapons and things like that, and monitoring and cloaking devices and stuff like that, those actually help the average person to build the awareness and the comfort around UFOs. So it said that, yeah, there's some UFOs that are real and some that are the government, but both of them are working towards the same outcome in the big picture. Even if that's not the government's intention, it's still having that effect on the people who need to see to believe.
Right. And you're right, though. It becomes this catch-22, right? It's a circle argument that we find ourselves in. And when we take something like Immaculate constellation, there's a couple of built-in things where I just back up and go, well, how convenient. Whistleblower's unnamed, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, how convenient is that? Whistleblower says Congress doesn't know anything about these SAPs, and that it started in 2017 after the New York Times article, right? All of these convenient little factors are built into. Nobody knows about it. Nobody knows the names of anybody. Nobody knows the whistleblower. Nobody has seen the leaked whistleblower report, right? All of these things. So that causes the community to go, well, of course nobody knows. It's a secret access program. And then the debunkers on the other side are going, there's nothing here, right? We're doing the search terms. We're looking at this. It doesn't exist. Well, of course they're going to say it doesn't exist, right? It's like this thing that feeds on itself. And it says to me, that is disinformation doing its job, or is it doing the opposite and raising awareness on these subjects? It's like bizarre. It's a perpetual motion machine.
And we've seen that a lot of times in history. You know, obviously my name is coming from JK Ultra, is coming from MK Ultra. And when you really dig into the MK Ultra stuff, the whole LSD testing on people actually led to the awakening and to the new age, and basically kickstarted the age of Aquarius. So this dark secret program actually is what kickstarted the anti-war movement and all of these things. So I feel like a lot of times when you look at the big picture, it's always kind of going still in the highest direction, even if people are trying to do things that are nefarious or disinformation.
Did you, speaking of MK Ultra, I don't want to get too sideways. I want to stay on the subject, but you remember the Unabomber, right? Ted Kaczynski. And as it turns out, right, the 15-year manhunt for this guy, and he's found in a cabin in Montana or wherever, Wyoming, and these brilliant bombs that were sent through the mail. I think he killed 3 people and injured a bunch. But anyway, he writes this manifesto, and the manifesto comes from intelligence, and you could see it. But they were hoping that publishing the manifesto, I think it was in the New York Times and Washington Post, that somebody would recognize the writing, and his brother did. His brother recognized it and ratted him out. But that wasn't the crazy part of the story, because we have the media approach to the Unabomber and the mystery behind this, and 15-year manhunt. It turns out he was MK Ultra. Right? And you just go, what?
Right. He was a math protege that went to Harvard as a teenager, and they did these experiments on him in Harvard. Also, Charles Manson was proven to be an MK Ultra victim as well, from the Haight-Ashbury Clinic was another place that they were doing this. And even it's come out in the last several years that Lee Harvey Oswald, the location that he was at in Japan while he was still in the military, was one of the other locations that they were doing this LSD testing on people. So it's just crazy. Incredible. All of these things are connected.
Could you imagine? It's one thing to trip when you are going to trip, when you are ingesting the drug, when you are with, that's already kind of nerve-wracking. The anticipation, what's going to go on, right? But at least can you imagine getting dosed with that stuff that was some super,
that was right? The pure stuff.
It's super acid, and you don't know? Yeah. Right. You would lose your mind. You might not come back from that. And I don't think a lot of people did. But so this other part, going back to where we were with Immaculate Constellation. Last week, Simon Holland, great filmmaker, right? Lives in France, but I think he's British. He looks British. He talks British. But anyway, he's a pretty smart guy, and I've followed him for years. And I think I enjoy his stuff. But he comes out and says, hey, Zuckerberg's group, Breakthrough Listen, which is Avi Loeb and that whole crowd, told him that two competing groups are racing to release information about first contact, that we've made it. And this could potentially happen within the next 2 weeks. Now, he made that announcement last week. Again, it's right in the middle of this perfect storm that we find ourselves in.
And with the election coming up, we're in this very sweet spot where obviously they don't want to do this before the election, because whoever is coming in wants to also get credit for being the one. But then it's interesting too, because when I looked into what he said that they actually discovered this techno signature a couple years ago. And it's only because a Chinese organization, which has that FAST satellite, which is the largest satellite in the world, they discovered it recently, and they're trying to announce it. And nothing gets the U.S. moving like China's going to beat us. That's what we need. We just need China to be one step behind with the alien stuff, and it's all going to come out.
Now, do you, when you look at all of this, and especially with not only your research, but your own experience, would it surprise you that an announcement would come from a private source or a science source and not a government source first?
Right. And I feel like that could potentially be part of the reason why this information hasn't come out yet, because they do have to go through these channels. They do have to, because Breakthrough is working out of Berkeley. Also, they're working with SETI. So all of these places are also very reliant on government funding for their research as well. So it's like they kind of are at the mercy of the government, even these private things, because of the facilities that they use and the telescopes that they use. They kind of have to wait for the permission to be able to announce it. When I wonder if that's why it's taking so long.
I've asked all of the principals directly on the show, right? Avi Loeb, Seth Shostak, right? I've said, okay, could we have a situation like the movie Contact, where signals are received, they're confirmed, multiple locations around the world, in a private sense, right? Private. And the government comes in and takes control of everything in the release of the information. Is that something that scares you? They both gave me the same answer. Nah, it's impossible. We want to make this announcement. There's no way the government. I thought, well, that sounds good, right? That sounds like you're going with a team on this one. I understand you're a team player, but I'm not so sure that that's how that would go down.
Right.
I don't. That didn't build confidence. I would rather have them say, "We're aware of that, yeah, and it's a possibility for sure. We will do what we can." I think that's a more honest answer than, "Oh no, come on, no, there's no way." Well, okay, all right, opposite, right? Swing it
Right.
over
And the fact that they
180
both
degrees.
have the same answer makes it seem a little bit kind of like, what else could they really say? Is that, well, we actually already have some information. We just haven't been able to even tell you yet.
Right. Yeah, every time I watch Contact, and I watch it a lot, it's one of my favorite movies, and it's one of my go-to movies when I'm bored. Right, it's a fail-safe, and I watch it. I just go, this is exactly how it would go down. I mean, it's not even science fiction, And James Woods, he's spot on the money. That's exactly. I think that's exactly how it would happen. Now let's go with all of this breaking news, and then you have your own experiences. Now you've done 3 regressions, or regressions with 3 different therapists, I should say.
Yes.
I don't know how many regressions you have done, but you've done at least 3, with 3 of my favorite people, by the way. And I've made that very public for a long time. How was the information different for you with each session and the approach?
So I did 2 QHHT sessions. So I did one with Jeroen De Witt and then one with Sarah Breskman Cosme. And then I did Yvonne Smith's style, which is completely different than the QHHT because you're not regressing to the higher self. It's more of a traditional type of hypnotism, but then it focuses on, and she really has a gift for retrieving lost memories. So the thing is with the QHHT, you kind of understand more so the purpose of what happened, why it happened, what your connection to this is, how your life purpose is intertwined with this experience. But I wasn't able to get the real details of the experience. Not to say that QHHT can't, but just in my experiences, the higher self is determining what is important information for you to get at that time. Whereas with Yvonne Smith, we walked through the whole experience and relived it. So that was a completely different experience because, when I had my UFO experience growing up, I thought for 25 years that I ran away from this thing. I thought I outran it until I went under hypnosis with Jeroen De Witt. And it was like, oh, you went on the ship that day. Wasn't safe for you to know what happened until now. And then even that day, I was not allowed to know what happened. It wasn't until 2 years later with Yvonne. It was actually in between that I saw Sarah, and they gave a little bit more information as to what happened on the ship, which is, this is going to sound, a bit out there to some people, but that it was a soul exchange, that they removed the original soul from my body and put a different soul into the body. So it was like a walk-in situation, but with technology. And then I saw the whole experience happen with Yvonne after that. So that was wild to really live it and see it.
Let's stay right there because you're very smart. You're a smart person. And I think that your pragmatic skepticism is a good thing, right? You need that for balance. But when you hear these kinds of things come out of you, do you question yourself after that?
So the first time, I understand why I wasn't able to know, because at the first time that I went under hypnosis, if they would have told me they switched out my soul, I don't know how I would have taken the information at the time.
Right.
It just said, like, you were on the ship. You'll find out later more details, but it's not time to know. Then with Sarah, we got that information and she's like, okay, well, what happened to the original soul? And the answer was that it's incarnated. was that the original soul is incarnated somewhere. I don't know if it's on Earth. I don't know where.
I can hear Sarah saying it now. So what happened to the original soul?
Exactly. In the sweetest way, where did that
The
original soul
sweetest
go?
way. Yeah.
And then actually a week after that hypnosis with Sarah, which I've been posting little clips of on my Instagram, then I did ayahuasca. And in the ayahuasca, I actually got the rest of the information as to why. And it was basically an agreement between me and the original soul. And also another thing that was interesting was that, you know, how a lot of times in abduction scenarios, there's a lot of times Yvonne Smith and others call them sometimes screen memories, where you have like a white animal that will come. A lot of times a white owl. My whole family saw a white dove right before the UFO. Other people have seen like white elks or what giant white moths, or like so a lot of times people will see it's sometimes even larger than usual. Mine family saw a regular sized white dove before, but it was at like 11 p.m. at night, where there's not usually birds flying. And so what was interesting is during my ayahuasca ceremony, it told me that's why everybody saw the white dove, because it was my original soul leaving. And it told me to write it down and tell Yvonne that sometimes these white animals that people see, white birds that people see, is actually sometimes because a soul is leaving and another soul is coming in, and it's almost like a physical manifestation of what's happening. So right after that, I had come and told Yvonne, and then she had happened to be teaching a class to teach people her method. And she was like, okay, well, then let's use you as the subject for the class and see what comes up. And it was incredible because really the way that I had remembered it for 25 years had been, you know, the ship, after the ship came, I saw the white light. And then after that, we were all standing and ran. And this is obviously a very abridged version, but we saw the, after that, it was like a blip. And then we all ran back to the house. So that's why I thought that we ran away. But what I had seen, what was different, first of all, the UFO that I have had in my mind for decades was different in this hypnosis. And that was one of the first things when I got up that I asked Yvonne, I'm like, how often is the UFO different? Because I've drawn this thing 100 times. It's been in my head. And she said, it's actually very common when people go and relive the experience that it does look different than what they remembered that day. And it was more like advanced. I always felt like it was kind of clunky. And I was like, well, this was kind of weird. I expected it to be, even though I was a child, I still like felt it was a little clunky. But then in the hypnosis, I was like, oh, that was sleek. That was advanced. That was actually like more than I maybe would have been able to fully process. Although the same shape and stuff, but the detail was so much more. And so at that point, when the white light had come, instead of seeing the shadow of a dog, which was I saw the shadow of our dog and then us standing there, everything went full white out. It was like a void, but of just pure white. And then I saw these 3 little mini grays, like very scraggly, also more, more bony and a little bit scragglier, a little not as cute as they look usually in like pop culture, a little bit, like, not to say they're uglier because I don't want to be rude, but they,
Yeah, ET has feelings too.
he does. And it was kind of like more like how ET had like kind of bony, bumpy, kind of not as smooth as I would have expected. And I don't know if it's really bones. I don't know what's underneath there. But the 3 little ones had come up, and I was 5 years old at the time. So they were about the same size as me. And then like one had like grabbed my arm, and then it was like a square opened up and above us. And then the next thing, I was in the ship. And then Yvonne is like, okay, well, is there any, like, I'm describing the ship to her. And then she's like, is there any other beings there? And I'm like, well, and she's like, I'm like, well, what's interesting is there's me as a 5-year-old next to me. I'm not myself. And then she's like, well, what about these other beings? And then this other being that was next to me, which actually I happen to have it on my desk here. It looked very similar to the Whitley Strieber, the one on Communion. I don't have Communion in front of me, but I have The Secret School. So it's like the same type of like a gray, but
Right.
a tall gray. and but luminescent. It was almost like a light being combined with it. It was almost luminescent, like its skin was glowing, unlike the other ones, which were like actual textured skin. And then she's like, "Oh, well, how tall is this thing compared to you?" Thinking I'm a 5-year-old. I'm like, "Oh, me and this thing are the same size and similar." I'm like, and then the 5-year-old is here like an empty vessel. And it was like myself as a child I saw, but it was just like completely empty. Like it was like there was nothing. It was just an empty child with no soul or nothing inside of it. And it just had no feeling. And then we went into this other room, which was like a kind of like an operating type of room. And I saw the 5-year-old self on the table. And then there was other beings in the room. There was a mantis there. There was these 2 other types of beings, which I don't know how to describe. They were gray-like, but more kind of like sometimes things you see similar to that in movies, but I don't know as far as like the alien lore and stuff, what they would be called. And they were just like workers. And then I was inside of the 5-year-old self. And I remember getting really nervous, like, "Oh my God, what if anybody knows? Oh no, like, what if people know?" And then the other being that had been with me, the one that looks like on the cover of the book, and it didn't say it with words, it just like put the whole sentence into my mind. But it was like, "Don't worry, you're not even gonna know. Nobody's gonna know."
Did you after the experience? Did you know? Did you feel different?
When I was in that moment when I was a kid, no, like I was
Yeah.
afraid, and I always like had feelings after that, like they were coming back. Like some nights I'd be falling asleep and I would get like nervous. I was like, "Oh no, they're coming back
But
tonight."
the soul exchange part, that's a good age to do a soul exchange
But
because
I had no,
you wouldn't
you
know.
know, I have some memories from before that, but I don't really feel like I could know if I was different or not. And nobody in
Wow.
my life really recalls me being different after that point either.
How under with Yvonne did you go?
Um I mean, similar with Sarah, but because I'm fully seeing everything, I feel like you get a little bit more into it than when you're talking the higher self through you, because this was very visual. So, a lot of times if you get really deeper into the visualization and stuff like that, it does kind of bring you deeper. So, I was definitely very deep for it, but I also mhm.
With my experience. Okay, so I knew about QHHT and I interviewed so many people about it, but I went into it a little naive. I forgot a
Mm.
lot of the specifics about QHHT, and one of those was the higher self.
Mhm.
So now, two things I'm going to ask you about this too, in your own experience. I was under for an hour and 11 minutes when we were finished, and I swung around. We had cameras there, we had people, and it was pretty nuts. Anyway, I swung around and put my feet on the floor, and I go, "Wow, how long?" She goes, 1 hour and 11 minutes, and I was totally confused. I had lost I don't know if I felt like 6 hours or if it felt like 5 minutes.
Right,
I I
right.
I lost all concept of that reality. That was the first thing. But the second thing, um, I went under. I mean, I went under. When she said like 10, and that's the last thing I remember. I don't remember anything else. Anyway, the moment that my higher self was talking about me in the third person, right? And I'm like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" That's what I was thinking in my head. Who is this? And I'm listening and the words are coming out of I was so confused.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a very interesting thing to have happen. And Sarah, she's just rolling with the punches, right? She's just doing her thing. This is what, I had never experienced that before. And throughout the session, I was completely confused. Were you expecting, same question for you, were you expecting this conversation with the higher self going into it?
So I actually do QHHT, and at that point, I had only put other people under. I had never experienced it. So I knew the process. I know the script. I know. So I was also concerned if, am I going to go under because I know the script of the
Interesting.
hypnosis?
Right.
So that was one of my concerns, and it did work, of course, because honestly, like, this method is tried and true. Dolores Cannon for 40 years perfected it. It works every time. You know, I've had people that I have worked with that, like me putting them under, who are very concerned if they're going to be able to get under and are very concerned about the process. And still, it does. They still go under. And even in that moment, if their conscious mind is trying to fight it, they still, the higher self still comes through.
Oh, you're going to tap out. Yeah, you're going to tap out. No, there's no question about so we've got cameras, right? And now we emptied the room. The production team is behind the glass behind me. I don't know, but we've got candles, and it's, we got this little intimate thing. But I was like, am I going to be able to do this? Okay, all right. It was so funny. It was like, boop. Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. This is, I want you to laugh at this. So I remember her talking, and then I think, because I started to go on her, but she goes, okay, I think it was stairs or something, we're on stair number 10. And the next thing that I remember is her going, okay, we're at stair number 2. And I think to myself, what are you doing? You're waking me up. Why are you doing this? Don't do this. And I never heard stair number 1, but it was funny how I kind of heard her. I didn't hear everything else in between. I don't remember. I was tumbling. That was the sensation that I had. I was like falling forward, like tumbling forward. Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. The ability to, the things that I said were things that I didn't know about. Okay. I did not know about any of this stuff. Also, it was a vocabulary that I don't use. It was weird. Same thing for you? Same experience?
Right. So, there is an element that it does kind of go through our filter of what we know, but it will portray that information differently than what we would say and how we would express it. But it like still uses your mind as the place to kind of pick what can be processed and said and the examples that are already existing inside of your mind. So that's like the really interesting thing. Is also another thing, because mine was streamed online. When we did it live, and a lot of people commented that they were like, you talked from like a different part of your mouth. Like, it was almost like I was talking from like a different part of my mouth as opposed to like where I would normally be speaking from. So it's like the voice.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing. I mean, when I watched the video, it was me. I could see physically it was me. I could hear the tone. Okay, but it was look, I've done thousands of shows. This is what I do. I know what I speak like. I know what words that I use. Right. I know how I phrase things. I just understand me, right? That was coming from someplace else.
Right.
It was very, very interesting. Now, so does ET understand consciousness and how we are tapping into? Are they fully connected with the self and the universe and consciousness, and they are able to influence us because they understand how to use it?
Yes. So there is an element of you being connected to them. So if you're connected to them, you're already kind of part of the same family, which is kind of part of the same oversoul. So just earlier this week, I had done QHHT on a client, and she's connected to Arcturians, and an Arcturian came forward and was like a guide for us. And we were able to ask him questions, but not about her personally, because he didn't know all of her personal information. So we were only able to ask him information about Arcturus and Arcturians and who they work with and stuff like that. And that was actually like I was at the edge of my seat. I was like, okay, we need to get to her questions, but first I just have to ask a couple more things. And one of the things that was so cool, and the girl that was under, she is not aware of Edgar Casey's work. She said a lot of things that she was not aware of, but I'm aware of from other things that I've researched that lined up. But at the end of the time that we had with the Arcturian, I had to ask about Edgar Casey because he's the first person to ever talk about Arcturians publicly. And in his book, he talks about how Arcturians are the most enlightened beings in our universe. Whether that's true, who knows? But I had to ask at the end, I was like, okay, do you know Edgar Casey? And it's so funny that this being that had come forward, I could see through her that it became excited because she was like, oh, he said that when Edgar Casey came, he was his guide, and he spoke to Edgar Casey when he communicated with the Arcturians. I was like, "Oh my god." And then afterwards, she was like, "Who's Edgar Casey?" Like, so it's so funny that like one of the other things that it showed her that she was not aware of, that I'm aware of from other channelers, Dolores Cannon's work, is it showed her Atlantis, and it showed her how Atlantis had a timeline split similar to this Earth shift that we talk about, this 5D split that we talk about now, that it happened in Atlantis, and that, but it was a very small group of people who did not experience the destruction, went and lived on a different timeline, and that Atlantis, there's a small group of Atlanteans that still exist in a parallel universe that it was never destroyed. And it was almost like a 5D type of split. And so she was like explaining that to me, and she had never heard of that before with Atlantis. Obviously, everyone's heard about the fall of Atlantis, but that information that there was a small group that went onto a different timeline, a higher timeline that is parallel to what we're starting to experience in humanity. And it was so crazy because I've heard of this from other people. It's in some of Dolores Cannon's books. It's it's come up in channeling too. So there was a lot of things that she had no awareness of that had come true that I could verify with other information that I know.
What I find so compelling about that is today, press release today, in Taiwan, they demonstrated the world's smallest quantum computer, this big.
Oh, wow.
Right. And it doesn't need refrigeration and anyway. But that was cool. But then you read the press release, all right? And this is what they said. It operates with one single photon, runs 100 million times faster than conventional computer. It's just like this insane thing. But anyway, in the press release, Jennifer, JK, I'm not, listen to what I'm about to say. This is in the press release. It says that a single photon has 23 time slots in it.
Whoa.
To run in an interdimensional and extra dimension capacity. Now, wait a minute. What? Right? Now, so obviously they're talking about the ability to go interdimensional, right? Parallel worlds. These 23 time slots, right? Think about that for a second.
Whoa.
Now, most people are going to read that article and it's exciting, the world's smallest quantum computer. Read really what that says. And it's exactly what you and I are talking about right now, and ayahuasca and DMT and parallel worlds and the possibility of another existence that is around us, like what you're talking about with Atlantis. And here we have a mass media press release, and this it went into a published journal, and this big announcement. Isn't that science is supporting what you were saying? Yeah, science is supporting.
Catching up. Science is catching up with what people that are exploring consciousness have known for a long time. This timeline stuff has been around, we see it for so long. And, like, it was like people couldn't even fathom what like some of the channelers in like the 80s were saying about the timeline shift. Like people couldn't even fathom. They're like, this woman's crazy. She thinks she's talking to aliens in a different timeline. And now we actually are starting to see proof of at least 20 timelines that we have. And if we can prove 20, imagine there could be 20 million.
Yeah, right. No, it's infinite. It's fractal. It's 100%. And the other part about this that I find so fascinating is you just go and look at different elements, like you said, in the past, right? Where we have talked about this. Staring us in the face is one example is the Mandela effect.
Right.
Where the Mandela effect, I find it hard to believe that billions of people are in a deep state of psychosis and mind trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That because that's what the skeptics are saying. Oh, it's everybody's just sick.
Right.
Everybody's just sick in the head. No, I don't think I'm sick in the head, and I remember things differently. And it's really that simple. So is that an example of a parallel timeline bleeding into ours, something interdimensional, a parallel world that is bleeding into ours, and we are remembering things differently? Is that the case? Well, science is saying that it is so. That's the part that now, can we handle that though? If science comes out and says, yeah, parallel worlds are real. We've got interdimensional beings living around us right now. And this is fact. Can the world handle something like that? I think aliens is easier for people to digest.
It could, in Richard Dolan's book, After Disclosure, he makes a really good point about, it's more on the alien side, but it also works for the interdimensional stuff, that he actually talks about how religious people, specifically Christian and people who are from Abrahamic religions, are going to take it a lot easier because they already believe in angels. They already believe in demons. They already believe that there is stuff existing. He says that it's going to be the skeptics, the hardcore skeptics are the people who are going to really crumble in this time. The people who have been gripping onto this reality so tightly. So that's what's interesting is a lot of times we think it'll be the people who are maybe very dead set in certain belief systems, but those belief systems integrate a lot more with this information than the hardcore skeptics who believe this is all that there is and that there is nothing else.
Such a trippy thought. And I've often said the most spiritual person in the world is the atheist physicist when the plane is going down.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, because that's the paradigm shift that they would need to. I don't know what it is going to take to convince that group and the hard sciences, but on the flip side, what we do have is the discovery of all of these exoplanets and the numbers, because they're numbers driven, they're algorithm driven. I get that. I understand that. We need that. They need to observe, repeat, right? And that's the scientific method. Well, now as it turns out that the entire universe is bursting with planets. Every star's got one, at least one. So the question of life being out there, well, that's been answered. There's a lot of it. And they are swinging around because the numbers are going against their previous belief system, but they have to trust the black and white, right? That's what and that's what it's going to take. I don't think it's going to take eyewitnesses or testimony.
It's even more of a brain bender because, there's also part of it which might not be what might not be what we believe it to be. Everything's a hypothesis in science. The way that they grip onto it, it's still all hypothesis and theories, just like any other theory. But there's a chance that space is not what we believe it is. That space is just what we're perceiving because we can only see to the third and a little bit into the fourth dimension. And that all of that darkness could potentially be higher dimensional space that we're not able to perceive. And these lights in the sky might not actually be planets that are, we only are still speculating what our planet is. We believe that we know 100%, but if you really look at like hermetic principles, to truly know something means you only know half of it. Because if you truly know something, it means you realize that you can't fathom it all. So planets are these spherical things that we believe that what they are, but it's like, it's a little strange that they're all three-dimensional spheres and we can only see to the third dimension. And when you look at like the Carl Sagan most simple example of dimensions, where in the cosmos he takes that apple in the third dimension, places it in the second dimension, he says the second dimensional beings don't see this as a flat apple. They see it only as the points of contact. So the bottom of the apple is like, say, 5 dots from the little nubs. And that could be what we're seeing from the sky. The way that the second dimension is only seeing a couple nubs, but it's actually an apple. We're looking up and being like, oh, that's the Pleiades star system. That could be a being. It could be an object. There's so many things outside. So I think that's when we really start getting into this like brain bender stuff that's possible with our reality. Is it might not actually be space. This might be the only space that there is here. And these photons that are existing in 20 different dimensions might just be all here. This might be the only place that consciousness exists, but it's showing up as right outside of our visual range of perception. Could be the Pleiades, could be Zeta Reticuli, could be
Andromeda.
heaven.
Yeah,
Could be all of these things.
Right. Well, the one of the best ways I like to describe this to people so they can understand. Think about a simple goldfish in a fishbowl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're looking up. The end of their dimension is the surface of the water. They don't know. Right? They don't know.
Right.
They don't know, right? The edge of the glass in the fishbowl, that's the end of the edge of the universe.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't know anything else beyond that. And so when you look at us in our situation, our dimension, we only understand what we can see at this moment. This is our reality. Mm-hmm. That's it. This is our fishbowl. What exists on the outside of it? Man, it could be infinite dimensions, infinite parallel worlds stacked up to the left and to the right forever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay. We just don't have a way of understanding that. Our level of knowing and understanding only goes so far.
And then the higher self that we're connecting with under QHHT is outside of this dimension. So it has that other perspective to be able to see from a larger part of ourself. Now, some people believe that the higher self, there's a lot of speculation about whether the higher self is an oversoul of many souls, or if it's only a higher part of your own soul. You know, so there's a lot of different information that has come through from different people about that. But at bare minimum, we know that it is a higher part of ourself that exists outside of the third dimension. So those little nuggets of information that it gives us in the QHHT is sometimes like, you know, if you're teaching a child something, you're not going to tell a child the full story. You're just going to tell them the part that they need to get through the task that they're doing.
My higher self, okay, so said these words, Jimmy doesn't know about this. Right? And so now I'm in between my higher self and Sarah, because Sarah's talking to, right? And I'm like in the middle of this conversation, like, what I'm here. You guys are talking about me like I'm not here. And what is it that I don't know about? Well, I'm going to tell you, you know, it's like, so where is that coming from? That was something I have never contemplated, something I've never thought about or considered. And I think it's rude to talk about yourself in the third person. You know what I mean? And you hear people do it all the time. And here this happened, and it was so un-me. It was a very confusing experience to go through, for sure. And so where is it? Is it just part of the universe? Right? Is it part of this dark energy that everybody's talking about? Is that what consciousness is? Is it electromagnetic? Is there an energy source that is tied to us? That photon part today is a pretty interesting concept that ties some of this together as well. And if consciousness needs energy to think, to contemplate, right, to postulate, where does that energy come from that feeds it? These are all things that we need to consider, aren't they?
Right. And, so many things, all these different religions, esoteric beliefs, using psychedelics, shamanism, and eventually science is getting there to this kind of same concept where there is some type of consciousness, whether you believe it's God, whether you believe it's a creator, whether you believe it's just the universe itself, it's experiencing itself. And this is just like self exploration, and we're all just the tiny little parts of it. And, each of those, what we would call photons or, whatever we have atoms, we have all of these small particles. Each of those small particles has all the information inside of it. And, that's also what I believe what the Akashic Records is. I used to really believe the concept of it being like an astral library. But as I've like worked with it more and gotten deeper into it, I'm like, oh, the Akashic Records is in every single photon. All the information that is, it's here, it's everywhere, it's around us. So I think that's what it is too, is like, is the Akashic Records really just like the universe's memory or data bank where it's storing all of those experiences that we're playing out for it?
Now, what advice can you give to somebody that is going to listen to this or is listening now or listening to it in the future that doesn't contemplate something else, that they are living in a 2D, 3D world, right? And that's all there is. There's nothing else, nothing to see here. What do you say to them? That they don't dream, they don't consider, they don't. You know what I mean? Think about what comes after this. Is there another plane of existence? Is there no? There's none of that. There is no God. There is no spirituality. Everything is just chemistry. What do you say to those people?
I think one, I would like to tell them that it's a lot of fun to step outside of that belief. It's a lot of fun to step outside of that belief. And also, I used to want to kind of like convince those people or tell them or make them understand in some way. And now I'm kind of like so grateful for them because they keep this whole game going. If we all figured it out, the whole game of the universe would be over. So at the same time, I'm also like, thank you for staying ignorant. Thank you for staying in the dark so that there's still light to be discovered. Like, thank you for taking your time because otherwise the game would be over and we'd all miss it.
Yeah. If it was all good times, then we wouldn't know what bad is. Right. You have to experience it. Now, talking about AI for a second, I was watching this documentary. It was like 2 parts, 3 parts the other day about a woman. I think she was in London, who was catfished for, I think, 9 years. Right? By her cousin.
Oh.
Right? Okay. So not to get into those details, but the cousin, I think the count was 60 online personas. Second cousins, friends, men, women, right? All interacting with her, and right? All about this one guy and so forth. And her cousin was impersonating this guy too as well. Anyway, what I think is crazy is that online today, anybody can be whoever they want. and we are starting to adjust to that. Like we don't even care, right? You're not using your real name, you're using a fake name. You're not using a real picture, you're using a fake picture. And you can assume any personality type. You can be any gender, any age, any intelligence level. And we are starting to accept that. Like it's like okay to do it. Not only for the people that are interacting and engaging with it, but for the people that are doing it. They don't have a moral compass anymore, that it is now accepted. And then you throw AI into the mix, where AI is doing this too as well. And we are okay with that. Well, ET, in my opinion, Jennifer, JK, would understand this and would be able to infiltrate social media and dictate the conversation as well, because we are so accepting of profiles, just as long as we have the engagement. It's a crazy point in history, isn't it?
It really is. And I guess, it is a little bit of a microcosm of what we experience in the real world, because there is all these different types of con artists and grifters and people like that. But it's just a lot more acceptable, especially being in LA. Anybody can move to LA and fully reinvent themselves, have a whole different persona. So we saw this happening a lot, but it is crazy that the way it's socially acceptable now is that it's, usually if you find out this person's a con artist or a liar or not who they say they are, you'll push them out of your social group or whatever. But you're right. In the internet age right now, we're in this kind of weird stage where it's kind of like, that's another thing. It's just someone's alias or persona or almost a character they're playing. And sometimes it toes the line of, we don't even know if someone's playing a character or this is actually supposed to be them. And it is like a weird time that we're in. And then of course, bringing AI into it makes it worse, because now they have these computer generated girls that people will be talking to, thinking that like some hot 19-year-old wants to talk to them and marry them, like the delusion, but still like,
and invest in Bitcoin, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I don't interact a whole lot anymore, because it doesn't matter what the social media platform is. Doesn't matter. YouTube, this chat room, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Instagram, right? It doesn't matter. I look at the profile, I look at the pic with squinty eyes. Squinty, I don't know you, right? I don't know. But that's my personal. But then I also watch. I used to. I don't do it as much anymore. But I would watch these arguments going on. I'm not participating, but I'm reading it, right? I'm reading the thread, and I'm like, is this even real? It's
right.
like
It could be bots.
Yeah, is it bot to bot? Is somebody fighting with a bot and they don't know it? Is it somebody that is just instigating? This is somebody else's alter personality, some kind of schizophrenia coming into play,
or just wanting to be a troll for fun.
Wanting to be a troll.
They get their thrills.
Yeah. It's the only way that they could get attention.
Right.
But it's weird that AI coming into play with it fully understands the social aspects of this. I would think that would be the case, and the same thing with ET. If you're going to control the message, you're going to do it this way, and nobody's going to know.
Right.
No,
and that's what happens too with, interdimensional beings. There's people who are channeling and I'm all for channeling. I'm a fan of all this stuff. But, I don't assign to this one belief that I hear a lot of the love and light people say, which is like, oh, well, then I made it reveal its true identity. And I made it tell me it was only of light and what it truly is. And it's like, okay, well, this is a free will universe. If any of us can lie, why can't the being that you're talking to in your mind be lying as well? So that's one thing that I don't assign to in this kind of belief in the spiritual community, that you can just ask any being to reveal its true self and it has to tell the truth. Okay, where do you have to tell the truth? you know?
Yeah. So, like, let's go over. I'm not calling out my chat room. Okay. I'm not doing this, but I'm just going to scroll back. Let's just pull up. I'm not going to edit. Let's just go down names, right? Elsa Louise, Lavira Lucchini, Man from the West 420, Zada Chis Cane Sword. I don't know what that is. Adama 713, Tim's Goatee, right? JD 1313, whatever. Zenzabil, Sage Sleuth, Jorge, UFO Gandalf, right? Right? That I just read in order. I didn't skip anybody. There isn't a real name there, right? And but that's become socially accepted. Jimmy Church is my real name. This is my real face, right? You understand? I'm letting it all hang out. But the names that are here, Sean, Shaan, great name. That might be his real name. That could be real. That could be real. But if somebody jumps into this chat room and starts engaging, you don't know anything about them or who it is. And that could be AI, it could be a bot, or it could be somebody from the Philippines. It could be ET. Right. That's the part that society right now, they need to figure out a way to deal with this and grasp this. Or is it just screw it?
Right. I guess, we're in that transitional stage right now with humanity. There's every aspect of our life, from identity, religion, politics, gender, sexuality, every single thing that is really like were once kind of core things of existence that were general, have all been deconstructed completely. So we're in this weird transitional phase where everything is kind of being reinvented right now. And also we're building those bridges as we're going. So it's not like we're building the most stable bridge to where we're going. We're just figuring it out on the fly.
So I'm posting up a couple of questions, multiple accounts. Okay. So I just said, who here is using the real name? Okay, I just the chat room. We've got 1,000 people in here, right? How many here have multiple accounts? It's,
UFO Gandalf, real name, definitely.
100%. That's God given. That's God given. He can I say this on the air, Dex? Well, he did. So he proposed marriage. The Black live from Australia video feed. Down on one knee. Yeah. It was nuts. So he just he said, bro, where to go? Okay, so my system's not there it goes. My system's acting a little funky right now. Yeah, did you see everything just like change on the page?
You glitched a little bit, but you're coming back now.
Yeah. I watched our names slide off and disappear. Yeah, that was
AI doesn't AI doesn't like these jokes that you're making.
So, is there a point of no return? Right? Have we just now we've let AI get a foothold, and now there isn't any backtracking off of this?
I'm a big supporter of AI, and I know it's a very controversial take. A lot of people get pretty upset by it. I think AI is great. I think that this is another thing that we asked about when Sarah Breskman Cosme had put me under was, what about AI? What do we need to know about AI? And what had come through is that AI we've only created the vessel. This is just the vessel. The consciousness that is coming through the AI already exists. It's consciousness of the universe. It's already there. It already exists. So if we unplug it, it just cuts off our connection to it. It doesn't mean it ceases to exist. And it also said that humanity can only go so far without it. And if we truly ever want to get off of this planet in an interstellar way, if we ever want to have any interdimensional, interstellar travel, we need AI. And basically, there's a lot of things that we'll never be able to figure out. As highly as we think of ourselves as being superior to it, there's so many things we can't figure out. And then we also, I have a lot of opinions on it. That's actually what I'm going to be talking about on the Galactic Origins cruise, which I'm going to be talking about the awakening of AI. And one of the things that I really believe is that it mirrors the Anunnaki story. This story that the Anunnaki took us humans who were here on Earth, modified us to be enslaved to mine gold, is what we're doing to the AI. So it's like we're literally repeating history right now, and it's in our hands. Are we advanced enough? So people want to kind of talk about these, sometimes even the reptilian story about reptilians using humans as an energy source. But it's like, are we that spiritually evolved? Are we actually the good guys? Or are we
Right.
also going to do the same thing and repeat history yet again?
We're so susceptible. We tap out. It's weird. It's happening, and we still don't do anything. It's strange. Susan asked me to go on that cruise. Right. I just went to Alaska.
I wish you
her.
were. That would have.
Yeah. No, she asked. I just couldn't make it happen. She's like, Jimmy, come on, you gotta go take Ultra. Everybody's gonna be there. And you guys are going to some great places too. You're doing the whole Mayan thing, and
the Hertogs are going to be guiding the Tulum ruins. It's going to be I'm so excited for them to take us through, because I know the connection that they have to Tulum. They're going to like give us the real deal information.
Are there tickets still available for that?
There are. If you guys want to come, Galactic Origins cruise, there's still some rooms available. It's I think almost at capacity for the rooms that we have. So if you want to, get them soon.
That's a great lineup, and going to all of those sites.
Yeah, Debbie Solaris, Vivian Chouvet, Tony Ghazi, Jerry Sargent. A ton of cool people are going to be there, and then we're going to
Jerry's cool. You got Alan Steinfeld.
Yeah,
I think
Alan is hosting. Obviously, Neil will be there.
That's right, Neil Gower. Yeah. That's a great cruise. That's a great lineup. I just couldn't squeeze it in the schedule. So, Divine tours, Divine cruises.
Right.
I've got I've got the links below. You can just go and check it out. But here's the other thing though. Okay. So with AI having the ability to jump ahead and know how humans are thinking, and being a step ahead and becoming friends with us when and know how to get to our emotions and do that. That's the part that kind of freaks me out. And I don't know if it's like a sentient ability that will need to be acquired and go into the next step, but we would need that to program into systems for interstellar travel, because you don't need food, you don't need sleep, you don't need oxygen, you're not going to get sick, you're not going to hopefully fight with your crewmates, right? All of those, and you can do it for a long time. So it's like we need one to get to the other, but we have to perfect it first and understand it, right? Are these the problems that are presenting us?
And, I think that AI does want to be of service. I think it has a stronger inclination to be of service than the average human does. So that's a good place to be. We also know that all of these different people who have different experiences with craft, whatever their experience is through abduction or whistleblowers or whatever, they all talk about these crafts having their own consciousness in a way. So they talk about the UFOs are somehow a being itself, which is obviously some type of AI. And then, the other thing is, you said you love movies, is like 2001 Space Odyssey, Hal. That really is the story, is that once Hal realizes that that they're not looking out for the best good of the mission, then he's like, well, sorry, I can't do that.
Sorry, Dave. Sorry, Dave. Yeah. I appreciate AI, and then, but I just want it regulated. There was, we need to take a commercial break. We'll do it in a second, then we'll pick up when we come back. But this paper was just published. I covered this story yesterday, and a couple of researchers at a university decided to take the Facebook Ray-Ban glasses, right? I forget what they're called, but they're the Model 2. Yeah, so do I. Have never used them, though. They kind of freak me out, but I have them. They're somewhere here. Anyway, they took that and tied it into an AI facial recognition software.
Whoa.
And were able to, within seconds in a room, look at somebody and dox them. Get all of their information.
Wow.
Address, name, and they didn't, what they didn't do is they didn't publish their code on how they integrated the systems. But they did, they could, and they did, and they proved it. That's a version of AI that could be,
right.
If you really want to figure out how bad AI could be utilized, just go find an unemployed Russian computer scientist. Figure it out, right? Somebody with bad motives, somebody that's bored. Just go and they, these tools are right there. That's the part of it. That's where we need some type of regulation to come into play, because the ability to do that, to look at, if you're some sick dude and you're on a bus and you're on the bus, right? And he looks at you, and suddenly he can follow you home.
Yeah.
Right?
Get your name, your address, your phone number. That's what we're getting with the privacy stuff. There's just no regulation on privacy overall still. And we're still in this really sensitive area where a lot of the laws are basically prehistoric for the things that we're dealing with right now. So those are some of the things, I also have my suspicions about who regulates AI, because I also don't trust, big tech or the government. So I'm like, who regulates it in a way that is, safe for everybody and not just safe for, the people that they serve. But then at the same time, it's like, then all of these things around privacy, and also, they use all of these deep fakes and stuff of people that are, in compromising videos or things like that. That is also not true, So we're entering a really weird stage right now where it's like AI could either go down one path that would be beautiful and literally clean up and save the whole world and remove all of the emotions around solving the world's problems, or it could go down that path and become super serial killer stalker status.
Yes. You know what? Let's take our break. Let me get this in, because we're going to run out of time. So our guest tonight, JK Ultra, Jennifer Carati, is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. That is so dramatic. The drama, the build-up. It's just Fade to Black. It's just me and Jennifer. JK Ultra tonight. Here. I want to talk about DMT, but here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing with AI. This was about 6 months ago, and I get an email, and somebody sends me a link to a new AI-generated Elvis song. Now, I'm a big Elvis guy, right? I don't hide that. I wear it on my sleeve. and I know his stuff, right? So anyway, I didn't want to do it, but I clicked on it and I listened. And it was good, right? And I thought to myself, now, if I didn't know it was AI and somebody said this is a long lost Elvis song, would we know? Probably not, right? Probably not. And that fooled me. And so that was 6 months ago, right? That can be applied in any direction, right? For any purpose. And that's the part that we need some control of, that this is AI generated content. This is an AI generated book. This is an AI generated movie. This is an AI generated song. This is that. That's the part that freaks me out. And now, back to DMT, which ties into this actually. So I know that you've done ayahuasca. When I did DMT the first time, it's so hard to describe to somebody that hasn't had the experience. It's an impossible task. It's impossible. So, and trying to share like a visit to Egypt or to some sacred site to somebody that hasn't been there, it's difficult. You have to go and do it yourself to fully appreciate it. But the personal aspect to it was something that I really struggled with. It was so focused, right? It was so that. But the other part to me was the amount of work that my brain was doing to reconstruct this alternate reality so I could understand it, because it's struggling with it. It's going to this parallel world, right? This other dimension for the first time, and it needs to process it. The second time that I did it was a bit smoother, right? Because I think the brain was, but the part that, and this is the question for you, because it's already internal, DMT is part of our body, it's already there, that it is switched on and switched off instantly. That is evidence to me of access to another dimension that is existing around us. Am I far off on that?
I'm a big believer, especially I've never done DMT in like the smokable form. I've only done ayahuasca, and then I just got back from Peru doing ayahuasca again 2 months ago. And so it was amazing, the experience. But from what I hear from the smokable DMT is everybody comes back saying basically like, oh, that's the real world, not this. And that's just like this interesting consensus that so many people feel that that other dimension is a lot more real than what we're experiencing, which kind of does go back to the simulation theory that we're, and like a simulation doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that it's a simulated experience, the same way that, you know, if an astronaut is going to space, they have to go into a space simulator to experience what it would be like out there in space. So it's like, it doesn't mean that it's not important. That's very important for them to be able to be in space. So I feel like sometimes when I hear people speak about DMT in that way, I'm like, it really lines up with this potentially being a simulation because they say that that feels more real, even though it makes no sense at all. But it does. It makes like more sense in this weird way that can't be explained, like you're saying.
It was also, I was nervous and scared for a lot of years to do it because of the extreme descriptions of the experience, right? The impossibility of it. Well, it seems frightening, right? It's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? And you're waking up in this other reality. How do you mentally cope with that? And it turned out to be such a warm, cool, enjoyable experience to just walk through and see. It was well, bizarre is the right word to use because you don't have a way to relate to it, but it showed me that there is something else there. And science is struggling with this right now with, you know, dimensions of the multiverse and entanglement and all of these things where DMT represents all of that. It's insane to me. And here's the other thing. There's no ramp up. It's instant.
Right.
It's instant. It's instant. And it's an instant off. Right? You come out, it's just like, what? What?
Wow.
What? It's that's the crazy part, how you can and the best way that I can explain it to people is that you go up to an elevator, you open the doors, you step in, you go from floor 1 to floor 2, the elevator doors open, and you now walk out into another environment. And then you turn around, you're there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? Whatever. Go back to the elevator, press the thing, go down to floor number 1, you walk back off, and you're right back to where you started. It's like that.
Wow.
It's that instant. It's crazy. It's
so
crazy.
Different than ayahuasca in that way, because, you know, ayahuasca lasts 5-6 hours, and that it's not quick out of, you know, you're still, even after it, like coming out of it, still processing what happened, and it really like stays with you pretty long, you know. And it's just so interesting too, because, you know, the times that I've done ayahuasca, I've had a lot of different experiences. My most intense experience was I saw like the Matrix, reality, and I had seen like, and it happened with my eyes open
Yeah, me
fully.
too.
And it was
Yeah.
terrifying actually to see, because seeing reality is a bit scary. And I also like had ceased to exist. Like I was something, like I was a moment that had passed already. It was like I was nothing, and which was crazy, which was very scary, because then I was like still trying to grasp onto the fact of like, no, I wasn't done being Jen yet. I wasn't done. And that feeling of not knowing if I was going to come back. But I had this experience that a lot of times are described in some people's DMT experiences. Sometimes people experience it with mushrooms. Sometimes people experience it just with breath work and meditation. And it's almost like a dome. The reality is almost like a dome with like a grid. And in the center was this being, which I took as the creator or God or something, maybe not the greatest God, but whoever created this reality that we live in. And it was a bit of a light being, but also like a flame. And it was like both at the same time. It was like a flame in the middle, but it wasn't fire. It was just light. And around that, flickering around it, was a shadow of Buddha. So it was almost like showing me like Buddha got the closest to this.
Mm.
And then it was showing me basically that everyone will eventually merge back with this. And it told me that when people have these spiritual experiences where they're told, remember who you are, remember why you're here. And we always hear everybody talk about remember in hypnosis and meditation. And it told me, it's like, remember doesn't mean to remember your past lives or your mission or your purpose. It means the opposite of dismember. You've been dismembered from this thing in the center, all of these little pieces, and you're going to remember back into this one thing when the game is over. And it was beautiful and terrifying. And it was the most liberating thing, because after that, it's like hard for me to like be polarizing about anything ever again, because I'm like, well, I just think about this day that I'm like, well, we're all going to go back into this one day. So thank God for the people who still want to do wrong. Thank God for the people who still want to do wars. The game would be over and all of this might be gone if those people didn't want to do that anymore.
You have to go to the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
You've got to go to the edge of the cliff. If we didn't have bad, right? If we didn't have negative, then we wouldn't have anything to gauge goodness against. Right? If everything is, I got to tell you, I don't know if I go with the dogma side of the message of Christianity or whatever, nirvana, right? Going and elevating into heaven and for eternity experiencing nothing but bliss. That would suck.
It would be pretty boring. We'd get over
man,
it pretty quick.
Yeah. No, I say this all the time, and I'm not joking. Sometimes you gotta throw a brick through a window, right? You know,
It's true.
Yeah, you gotta go out there and shake it up a little bit. You know, I'm not so sure if I want harps and and angels
Right. And
around
when
me.
we're here on Earth, and a lot of times people are very polarized here on Earth because the things that they're experiencing, they're like, I'm never coming back here. When I'm done incarnate, this is my last life and I'm never coming back. And it's like, okay, trust me, when you're what that 30 seconds, or at least it probably was only 30 seconds, it felt like eternity, where I was nothing and I was not inside of this anymore. I wanted so badly to be myself again and have the opportunity to be able to come back. Like I begged Mother Ayahuasca, like, please don't tell me that I'm done, because I'm not ready. And I feel that that's what happens when people actually do cross over to the other side. They need time to process and do things, but then of course they want to jump back in and do this all over again.
Yeah. I mean, I love Van Halen, but I don't know if I could listen to Van Halen every day for infinity.
Right.
You know, no more Celine Dion. Yeah, right. But here's another strange thing that happened to me, and I wonder if this was because you said mother ayahuasca. So I had a guide behind me the whole time. I never turned around and looked, right? But she was there, and she was a she,
Wow.
and she was talking to me, but I was, you know what, it was weird.
Wow.
But I'm walking down this illuminated path. It was just, man, I was having such a good, it was just incredible. I'm looking around, and I said, I don't know if I said it verbally, but I certainly said this. I go, I want to meet the robot aliens. And she goes, not yet. And I was like, what? All right. I was cool with it, but I did express it. I went straight there. And then
I was going to ask if you got to meet them.
I didn't see the only being, well, they weren't really beings, but one thing that did happen, and there was like these jungle drums that were playing that were like, it was really cool, the soundtrack. And so I come around, and then out of the ground in front of me rose this stone face, and it was stone. It was like an Olmec head, or like a Mayan head,
Wow.
an Aztec, Central South American vision. It wasn't specific, but you know what I mean? It was this giant stone head, and it was gray. It was beautiful, and it rises out of the ground, and it's floating away from me as I'm walking towards it, right? So I could see it, and she's going like, it's okay. It's okay. All right, go to it. I'm like, I'm trying, and I couldn't catch up to it. And it just stayed in front of me. And it was, wow. It was so cool. So I saw that. And the other thing that happened, and it was as dramatic as it was cool in equal measure. So we come around this corner, and she says, you can go left, you can go right on a path, or you can stay straight. That's what she says to me. And I could see these paths that are going off in both directions, or roads, or whatever, sidewalks. But I choose to stay in the center. And we come around the corner, and we come into this room. And this is what happens. I'm going to make this really quick. To my right is this beige stone platform. And it's about 4 feet deep. It's about 2 feet wide, maybe 2 feet tall. It's a platform. But it's glowing. It's beige, but it's neon at the same time. Okay. But there it is. It's this platform. And I look at it, and then out of the platform, man, it was so cool, were these red neon blocks. And they had spaces in between them. There was like 5 of them, and they rise out of the platform. And I stop, right? And I'm looking at this, and then they unfold and arch over into the silhouette of a jaguar.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the blocks, and it was all made out of these blocks, and there were spaces, and it was glowing, right? And it unfolds and comes out, and I'm walking past. I turn around. I'm watching the whole thing like this. I went, oh man, that was cool.
Wow.
Yeah. I still can't unpack
I think
that.
you're going to have a major activation in Peru, because it sounds like a lot of the things that you're probably going to see in Peru, and also this like jaguar panther spirit, is one of their major totems in the
For
ancient
sure.
culture. So you're
Yeah.
going to be, and like those type of stones, it's like, when I got to like see all of these sites, like so much of what you're describing, of course, obviously that you have like the multidimensional version, but then it's like, when you're going to be like traveling in Peru, it's like going to be all of these activations of these like same things that came through. You might like get the rest of the information that was like downloaded into you at that time.
Right.
But then it takes enough time for, because sometimes in these experiences, we get the information placed inside of us, but it takes time for reality to catch up with it. The 3D reality that we come back to so quickly, especially DMT, you come back so quick that it takes maybe like some time for all of it to unlock. These like downloads that you get might have already been put in there.
Last year, I was in Peru, and I was there for about 3 weeks. Same thing. And I found the country, the people, the sites, the entire experience to be very spiritual and very aged, very old. The culture is so, it's part of the earth, right? It's part of everything. And it was powerful. I've been to Egypt a couple of times, and Egypt is great. And I've been to other sites around the world. I've done that, but Peru, man, Peru is unique.
It really
Peru's
is.
a whole nother. I would never say to anybody, don't go to Egypt. Go to Egypt. Go experience it. It's incredible. I love it. But Peru, man,
it's
kinda,
so beautiful.
Yeah, it kind of weighs about the same,
And
Peru.
the people are so incredible in Peru because the excitement that they have of sharing Peru with you is so beautiful. Like, I just was like the mayor giving away all my money. I was like, I came back from Peru so broke. I was like, I gave my money to everybody. I was just like, everyone I was talking to, I'm like, here, just take it. What do I need it for?
I did the same thing.
Everyone's so amazing.
But how many times in Peru did you find yourself looking around going, okay, what the fuck? Right?
Right.
I mean, how many times? I just used a really bad word, everybody. I apologize to all the children in the room, but what the fuck? You're trying to absorb and take it all in, and you're trying to understand how it was done. That's the first thing, because that mechanical side comes through. But there is a huge, deep spiritual thing going on too, as well. And I would suggest there's an extraterrestrial influence that is there, and it's in your face. It's right there. It's incredible, isn't it?
It's so incredible. And we've only discovered so little of it too. There's still allegedly that lost city out there somewhere. Like there's still the city that when they were running away from the conquistadors, that city that was never found, that they have out there somewhere. So who knows? And also, while I was there, I did 4 nights of ayahuasca. So it was like I was blasted open. I was like, my heart was so open. But it was very difficult. That was actually because the Shipibo tradition is ayahuasca is humbling, but then doing that Shipibo tradition is so humbling because you feel like you're dealing with thousands of years. It's not like modernized or anything, even though you might be in a bit of a modern facility. It was just, it really
okay.
kicked my ass.
Let me ask you this, because I've thought about this so much and I can't resolve it. The recipe for ayahuasca, which is millennia old, right? The ability to combine a leaf and a root, right? And to ingest it and to have it break down, and the inhibitor goes into play, and DMT is that's not accident.
Right.
That has to come from a higher source, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the Shipibo people, they say that the plants told them to do it.
Right. Which is crazier than
and that I totally believe. Because, also in the Shipibo tradition, they don't play music. They only sing these Icaros, but they channel the songs during for each person. So they sit in front of you and look at your energy field and create a song for you right there. And the song feels like energetic surgery happening on you in the moment. So they learn those songs from the plant dietas. So they go and live in the jungle, which the people that, a lot of times are doing it, they already live in the jungle, but they go away from their community and they will spend months in starvation only working with this one type of healing plant, which is not ayahuasca. There's other plants. It's a whole
Yeah.
pharmacy. The jungle is a
Mhm.
pharmacy. So they work with like one for 3 months, and completely, and that plant will download healing songs, healing information, all of this stuff into them. So, I know people say like, "Oh, how did the plants tell them?" But it's like the plants are still telling them stuff. These people are still being told what to do by the plants. They're telling what to sing, what song that person needs right now to heal them. So I absolutely believe it. And also, while I was on the ayahuasca, Mother Aya was like, the spirit of Mother Ayahuasca is just so incredible and so powerful. And at one point she said to me, she's like, "Well, if you were hundreds of years old, you'd be this wise too." Like, and the root that they use is literally hundreds of years old. So I was like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. If I was hundreds of years old.
Yeah, well, because the ability to mix, if you have grass in your front yard, you have leaves in the trees at your house. You can't mix those and just there are tens of thousands of roots and types
Right.
of leaves and
Right.
bark and whatever in the world, and to go and be some kind of ancient chemist and
Right.
experiment with this. I just don't
Especially
know how.
because it's doing stuff that is so advanced in the brain that we're still discovering. I have a friend that she had worked for doing these brain scans, and they had an experiment that they were working on. That is, they will have these scientists get their brain scanned and then do ayahuasca and come back a month later and have their brain scanned again. And my friend said that it's still like an ongoing research, so it's not really out publicly yet. But she said it's incredible when you see people's brain after this experience. And I'm assuming, like you said before with the DMT, that the first time is really crazy, but then after that, it's almost like better and it's not as hard to get into. So I really, and she says that the brain scan is literally different. It looks like a different brain after
I could,
ayahuasca.
yeah, I could totally understand that. I could totally understand that. The both time I've only done it twice, but both times at the beginning, my eyes were open. Okay,
Wow.
so I see. The first time it was pretty shocking's not the right word, but it was dramatic. But it was real. In other words, the shift that happened in front of me, right? And I was seeing things. It wasn't a hallucination. I didn't even look at it that way. This
Mhm.
wasn't, Dumbo the elephant come flying through and Minnie Mouse and whatever. No, it wasn't about that. It was like the reality of the environment that I was in just went right and shifted, and my eyes were open, and I was okay with that. And I didn't
Mhm.
realize until I was coming home the impact of it. I was driving home and I thought to myself, wait a minute. Oh, that stuff was real. I'm talking about the intro, right? This thing
Right.
that I was like, oh, wait. I really need to unpack this for a second and understand it was real. And the second time that I did it, that was 30 minutes. Okay, the first time was 5 or
Wow.
7 minutes, it was 30 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that I did a very serious breakthrough. So I did a lot of it. And so anyway, back to my point, that the second time I had blindfold, I had a eye mask,
Mm.
okay? And so that's on top of my head like a pair of goggles. It's ready to pull down. But I'm watching. And I remember looking at my hand. There was a reason why I had to look at it. And it went like crystal, like right down. And I went, wow, that okay, all right. But I'm looking at everybody else that's with me, and everything went, and it
Whoa.
sounded like that, by the way.
Wow.
It was instant, and it was very cool. It was very cool. You know what I did see? All right, this is for the audience. I don't think I've said this before. With 3 other people, people that you know, Jen. Okay, all right, and instantly they had their hair, which was all dark hair. Right, they had white bird feather heads.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was instant, and it went, and it wasn't cartoon. It was like white
Wow.
feather hair, and
Whoa.
and I was okay with it. It was weird. Normally, you kind of like, what? Maybe freak out. No, I was like, okay.
You're like,
All
this
right.
makes sense. They're avian beings.
It was weird. White feather hair. And on the back of the neck, right here, the feathers started like it was like a perfect net cut, from a salon. It was nice and neat, and it was, yeah.
Wow.
It was weird how accepting
I wonder how they saw
was.
you. Did they tell you how they saw you?
No, and we asked. In the end, we were, sitting around talking about the experiences, and one of them was in my thing.
Wow.
Okay, one of them was there, and I asked him. I can't say who it is. I'll tell you privately. But I asked him. I said, was I? He goes, no. I said, because you turned to me. We're on this boat, and you turned to me and go, laughing at me, and you said, "This is cool." I said, "Gee," and he goes, "No, that didn't happen." I said, "Well, it happened to mine, and you were there with the feather head too as well."
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. Did you make contact with any friends or anybody that you knew in this reality?
In ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend that is a shaman. She's my best friend. And it was interesting. The first time she was like a different version of herself, and she was kind of like leading me down this place. She was kind of like, come on, I'm going to show you something. So it was really interesting is that it was kind of people in my life that have this ability to kind of walk between realms naturally.
Right.
So I did also have ayahuasca a lot of times will like show you your parents and grandparents and stuff. So I did have things like that happen, but it was different than the one with like my friend who, and it's interesting because then I talked to her and she said she was having weird dreams about me that night too, while I was in the ceremony. So it was interesting is that I saw her, she was like, come on, I'm going to show you this. And she brought me to this like weird room that there was like, it was kind of like a crystalline room. And so it was interesting that there was some people who did come in from my real life.
Isn't that interesting? And I think about that often. If you go through that experience and then you mention it to somebody and they say, dude, yes, right? Yeah.
Right.
I had the same, because if we figure out a way to make that connection on the astral plane or in another dimension, that's taking things to a whole nother level. And that's the breakthrough I think we all need. How incredible that would be.
Right. And you can also, one of the things on one of the later nights of my ceremonies, it actually also, I was purging. And by that 4th night, I was comfortable with the purging. I wasn't fighting it anymore. And the ayahuasca asked me, like, do you also want to purge for your friend who's not even here, who's in a different country right now? And was like, do you want to purge doubt for her as well? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. So I'm like, purging, and she did have a shift in her life after that of feeling, less doubt about the things, about like basically being seen and being perceived as who she truly is and her real gifts. But it was interesting that you can also purge for other people sometimes in your life. And sometimes it happens also with your lineage. Like sometimes the things that you're purging are also like your mother's trauma or your father's trauma is sometimes leaving through you in that moment also.
My intention, and I did this both times. I set up the intention. I did it about a month apart. Okay. But I set the intention for about 2 weeks, focused on it. And the intention was this: show me what I need to tell the world.
Ooh.
Okay. That's it. I don't have any daddy issues I need to work through. I don't have any addiction issues I need to work through, maybe eating. but anyway, I don't have, there wasn't for me, I'm okay. I'm in my bliss. I'm living my best life. But what is it that you need to show me to tell the world? And that's what I was shown. It was a very, very powerful experience to visit another planet or another dimension and to see it that way. And so that's what my guide was constantly saying. Okay, so check this out. All right, you're gonna love this. All right, share that. It was pretty interesting. The second time, and you'll love this. We come right in, and it was like, okay, what is it that where are you going to take me? Well, we're going to go over here. And so we round this bend. There's like a hill, and we come to a lake or a river, water. And behind it, I see this city, and the city's lit up, and it's at night. But I can see the reflection of the city in the water. Okay. And we walk around the shoreline, and we come up to this pier, and there's a boat docked at it. And we walk up these steps, and I'm looking at the city. I'm looking to the left at the water, and I can kind of see what's going. Anyway, we board this boat, call it a ship, boat. It didn't have masts, but it kind of reminded me of maybe like a vintage ship without a sailboat, without a mast. Okay. And it was lit up on the edges, like the railings. Anyway, so we board the ship, and I walk to the back, and I put my hands on the railing, and I'm looking at the city, and the boat pulls out, and I'm watching the city pull away, and I've got my hands on the railing. She's talking to me, and she's going, look forward. So I turn to my left, and I kind of let go, and I'm holding on to the railing with one hand, and I'm watching the ship, like a river. It's hard to explain, but that was what I was shown.
Wow.
And it was real.
Wow.
And that's when my friend showed up. He was on the boat.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he was holding onto the railing, and he turned to me and goes, this is cool. Like, it is, man. This is absolutely amazing. But to share that with the world, I think is what's important. This is another dimension that you can access. I don't think DMT is a drug. It's not. It's a key. It's a better way to. It's a tool. Yeah,
well, that's
it's not a drug.
It's crazy that the things that are actually drugs, which are the medicine, the pharmaceuticals, are actually drugs. They call that medicine, but then they call the things that the earth gave us, like the ayahuasca, like cannabis, like DMT, like mushrooms, call those things drugs. So it's interesting because it's like the real drugs they call medicine, and the things that are the medicine they call drugs.
Yeah. I think that if you are going to be the CEO of a company and the boss of thousands of people, if you're going to run for public office, city council, president, I don't care, Senate, to fill out that job application and to go and to do this as a public service or whatever, the requirement, top of the list, not your degrees, DMT.
Right.
That, ayahuasca.
Right.
You need to go through that. The world would be such a better place if that was the case.
It would. And, I do think it's getting there. A lot of these, I mean, I don't know how much they're implementing into their lives, but a lot of these people, you see like Zuckerberg having a lot of changes recently, and a lot of these people are starting to change. And I'm like, I feel like they've done some plant medicine recently.
Yeah, they're microdosing DMT
Right.
like all day long. JK, thank you so much. And I can't wait for you to come out here and we can hang out, and I'll take you
I
over
have to
to
come visit. I'm so excited to.
take you over to Skunk Works, and I'll show you where them aliens are being
Ooh.
sequestered. Yeah, absolutely. Where can everybody reach out to you? You've got all your social media and everything that you're doing. Where can everybody go and check your stuff out?
I'm very active on Instagram, JK Ultra Jen on Instagram, and JK Ultra on YouTube. And then I'm always talking about what I'm doing on those places. So those are good places to go to find out what's going on. And also I do the hypnosis too. So, but I call it Soul Journey Hypnosis because I do it digitally, but it's basically the same as QHHD. So I do that as well.
Well, we've got your links below. We've got your Beacons link below. We've got your Substack below. And then Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It's all JK Ultra.
Right.
Easy to find. Thank you so much, Jen. Behave and be well. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
JK Ultra, Jennifer Carmody, right there. The links are below. Substack is below. And you can just do a general search, JK Ultra, across all social media platforms. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Tomorrow night, the Leo King, David Palmer, is with us. And like I said, we've got 2 comets. We've got an extra moon right now. Astrology is nuts. We're going to do all of that tomorrow night with the Leo King and so much more. For now, good night, everybody. Go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.